A cold and lonely road became the unlikely setting for a heartfelt rescue when a young boy, walking home from school, stumbled upon a heartbreaking sight: a wounded, stray dog trembling in pain by the roadside. The boy, too young to help on his own and unable to take the dog in due to family restrictions, acted on instinct. With urgency in his voice and compassion in his heart, he reached out for help. Responding immediately, we made our way to the location. From a distance, the dog's persistent coughing echoed through the air, a painful cry for attention. His matted fur was unrecognizable, caked in dust and twisted into knots, each tangle a silent story of neglect. As we moved closer, the reality of his condition was overwhelming. Numerous visible wounds, most severely on his face, and eyes clouded with fear and confusion. This wasn't just an abandoned dog. This was a soul clinging to survival, desperately needing a chance. Despite the dog's fear, we carefully approached and managed to secure him without causing further distress. His body flinched at every touch, a sign of deep-rooted trauma. We thanked the boy for his kindness and raced to the nearest veterinary clinic without hesitation. Once examined, the situation became even more grave. His body temperature was elevated, and the persistent cough pointed toward a serious respiratory infection, likely pneumonia brought on by prolonged exposure to the elements and untreated injuries. An X-ray confirmed the diagnosis: bronchopneumonia, with extensive inflammation visible throughout his lungs. Immediate action was necessary. Yet, before treating the infection, doctors had to address the suppurated facial wounds. If left untreated, they posed a risk of sepsis. Emergency surgery was performed with precision. 3 layers of stitches sealed the open wound, and a course of antibiotics was begun to manage both the infection and inflammation. The next few days were crucial. Though the surgery went well and his vitals stabilized, we knew any post-operative infection could reverse all progress. During this time, the dog, who had shown nothing but submission despite his pain, remained quiet and still, accepting treatment and food without protest. His calmness spoke volumes. It was as if he understood we were there to help. Gradually, we began to see small signs of recovery. On the 7th day, he wagged his tail and approached us on his own, an emotional moment that made all the sleepless nights worth it. He had begun to reclaim the spirit. Witnessing his transformation, from trembling and wounded to curious and gentle, reminded us of why we do this. Rescue isn't just about healing wounds, it's about restoring trust, reviving hope, and giving a future to those who had none. However, reality brought its own challenges. With another dog under care and resources stretched thin, we made the difficult decision to bring him to our humble shelter to continue recovery. Though lacking in amenities, we compensated with warmth, attention, and even a heater to keep him comfortable through the cold nights. As the new year approached, we celebrated in a simple but joyful way, decorating the yard and preparing special meals, including homemade dumplings filled with love. During this time, we realized something was still missing: a name. After thoughtful consideration, we offered him 5 meaningful names, allowing him to choose his identity. He picked one himself, Big Eyes, perhaps a reflection of the soulful gaze that first connected us. Since then, Big Eyes has continued to heal and grow. He's still cautious, likely due to past traumas, but every step he takes toward trust is a victory. And now, with the stitches removed and pneumonia under control, his journey to a full recovery is nearly complete.